Hi there, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to IBMA for putting together this panel and bringing light to really this topic that is so important, especially given the circumstance within the music industry and the world right now. I'd love to introduce the panelists of the panelists we have today. First, I'll give an introduction of myself. My name is Danielle Bokor. I work with MusiCares, which is a nonprofit arm of the Recording Academy that people with emergency financial situations in the music industry. I'm also a part-time therapist in the Nashville area, providing counseling services to people who tour specifically in the music industry. Tristan, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, where are you located?
Sure. Well, my name's Tristan. I play the mandolin. I've played bluegrass and toured for like 15 years or something. I live in Nashville. I've actually used MusiCares a lot. They've been very helpful to me personally. But I've been pretty open about my sort of experiences with mental health and stuff as a musician, and getting a handle on my mental health and getting sober and stuff like that. And so I'm happy to be here and talk about that.
Awesome. And Annie, tell us about you. Who are you? What do you do? And where are you located?
Okay, hi, I'm Annie, and I'm kind of old now and just cruising along all by myself here in my little house. And I'm in Chandler, Arizona, right in the hot spot of the whole United States right now. So I'm being very careful and have been careful from the beginning. This is my 111th day at home. And when you say it like that, it sounds terrible. But I have a very large bluegrass band. We're well connected with IBMA and the Arizona Bluegrass Association, but I started this band just so I could have somewhere to play 26 years ago. And it's very diverse. I live in a very diverse neighborhood, probably mostly Hispanic. And so I've run this free bluegrass program for 26 years. So I have lots of children. Most never really leave until they run off or get married or whatever happens. So this has been, it's been a challenge. I didn't think it would be so long, but I'm cruising along, and I've got ways that I do that. So that's who I am. And thank you so much for IBMA putting something together. It's great. Great to see Tristan. He's been to my house. He knows.
Thank you, Annie. And David, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm David Moultrup, and I first got involved with IBMA a bunch of years ago when Ken Irwin approached me and got me involved with the wellness project. And so we proceeded to do wellness sessions for IBMA in Louisville and all through the Nashville years into the Raleigh years. In the meantime, I've been a musician my whole life, going way back. And so the combination of the mental health and the music for me have been sort of a steady state for way more time than I'm going to talk about right at this particular time. But I've been around long enough to know that there are no easy answers for these questions, and that usually there are no quick answers for these things. And so each sort of situation deserves its own special sort of understanding, and each situation deserves its own
That's somebody else's. It's not mine.
Yeah, no, I got it. Right. Each situation deserves its own care and feeding. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Zack, give us an intro for you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on this panel. My name is Zack. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based in Los Angeles. Majority of my work is with people in the music industry in my private practice. I was a working songwriter for about 12 years before I became a psychotherapist. So my experience sort of on both sides of the spectrum, like David was talking about, it is ingrained in the work that I do therapeutically with the community. Outside of my private practice, I'm one of the co-founders and the clinical director of Backline.care, which is a national nonprofit. Our mission is to connect music industry professionals and their family members with a trusted and vetted network of mental health providers and wellness providers. So we can help anybody out there who needs access to some mental health care or whatever wellness support, whatever it is that you're going through. So I'm really grateful to be here and to have this discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And again, to IBMA for putting this on for us. I'd like to encourage any questions to come through on Facebook. I'm watching them and hopefully we'll be able to respond to any questions that pop up as they arise. But let's get started with, we're talking about self-care and caring for others. And I'd love to hear from Tristan and Annie, what have been your experiences as musicians during this tough time? How do you find well-being and balance?
You want to go first, Tristan?
Sure. Well, I spent the first month of this thinking I was handling it super well. And maybe I was, but I'd kind of had already been spending a lot of time trying to get off the road and not really have that be my main source of income and main thing going on in my life. So I was kind of lucky in that respect that I already had that sort of going on. So I just kind of made a switch to doing a lot of online stuff. But about a month into it, I just, all of this, all the same things that happened to everybody started happening. I was around my partner 24/7. I was never alone, which I never left my house, which was something I hadn't done in years. And and I started to feel this sense of malaise and not really sure what I should be doing, even if I personally felt pretty confident in what I was doing and intentional about what I was doing. It was still really, I just found out I didn't have any sort of reference point to like check in with myself about whether or not I was making any sort of difference to myself or anybody else. And so I just sort of started to feel really weird. And so I kind of just, I don't know, I started to look inward a little bit more. My partner started doing tarot readings, and we were doing some tarot, and I realized, well, now would be a great time for me to work on my relationship with my mother. And so I started doing that a little bit more, and just trying to it's been really helpful for me to take this as an opportunity to take a breath. And I know that I don't have any control over the situation, and so just thinking about taking this as an opportunity to think about what I want to do and take a little bit of time for myself has been really helpful throughout the process. How about you, Annie?
Okay. I never am too still for any amount of time. And this was something new, but I knew that I had to get a grip on it right away. And I tried to change my perspective to say this is a gift of time, of which I don't know when I ever had time like this to just plan whatever I wanted to do, whether it's with the band or music or whatever. And so that was my very first thought. I kind of voiced that to people. This is a gift of time, and let's use it wisely. We may never have another gift like this. Hopefully we don't, not like this. And so that was the first thing I did. And then I already do yoga 2 or 3 times a week, but the studio shut down. In fact, he lost his business. But he had each person come in. This was right at the very beginning when I would chance to do it. And this guy recorded, individual yoga things. So I can go and look at that online anytime I want, plus other people. So I don't have to go out because I'm not a big walker. I don't want to walk and I don't want to do any exercise. That's the best thing I do for myself. So I started trying to get those things. And then I had gone, the biggest thing I guess I did, because I never do anything just for my music development, but I had developed after Victor Wooten's camp, he's there in Nashville. Nate Lee turned me on to that book and I read it and I thought, holy cow, I gotta do this thing. And so I did do that. I signed up for the music theory camp really hard. And then I took the 2020 vision camp. I didn't know I could sit in this space, you know, right here where I am now. You can see how it looks. Okay. It looks like that the rest of the place. But I created my little environment right here. And I learned to do stuff. Have to call my daughter sometimes tell me what to do, but I learned to do things. So right away, I had to kick in with kind of a plan. But my 25-year plan included being happy with my mandolin playing, which I've never been, mostly because I didn't practice.
So it's important to find, I hear you both saying it's important to find that new rhythm in things are now. And Annie, I love that focus too on gratitude in the midst of uncertainty and difficulty. That can be hard to be focused on gratitude and see the silver lining, but we have a lot that we can do as far as our thinking in influencing ourselves and how we move forward. So having those thoughts and that focus of gratitude is awesome. So I'd love to hear David and Zack tell us a little bit from your therapeutic experience being in the mental health realm with the music industry. What are the biggest concerns that you're seeing for folks in our industry right now outside of that financial piece? What are the mental health concerns you see?
Go ahead, Zack.
Whew, that's a big question, right? First of all, thank you, Annie and Tristan, for sharing that with us. Annie, I wrote it down. I loved what you said about the gift of time. Such a beautiful way of reframing it and looking at things, and also like creating that little environment. And I think that we all have the power to do that, and create our own little environments, regardless of the chaos and the uncertainty, like you said, Danielle, it's going on around us. And I think that sort of leads into where a lot of what I'm seeing clinically with clients and people in the music industry that I'm speaking to on a regular basis is really figuring out how to manage that anxiety and manage that uncertainty. I hear a lot of people who, even 4 or 5 months into this, who are getting, their calendar invites are going off with some tour they were supposed to go on in August, and it's getting canceled, and sort of it's another sort of stab to them and their experience that they can't do the things that they love to do. So I think sitting with the uncertainty and sitting with the anxiety that comes with really not knowing what is going to come next in this industry for so many people is a lot of the work that I've been trying to focus on. Obviously, there are substance abuse issues and depression and anxiety are sort of skyrocketing as well. But a lot of what I'm trying to do personally and with others is really to figure out what's happening in that discomfort. What's happening when the things that we held on to are no longer there, when our identities of who we are as players or crew or front of house, back house, whatever it might be, when those things seem to get taken away. Sort of one of the larger philosophical conversations we have a little bit is like, if I'm not singing, am I a singer? And if I'm not playing, am I a player? And sort of teasing that out a little bit and what those identity pieces are as well. But just, again, I think it's really about sitting with the emotional experience of what we're what's happening for us now, and how we can manage that and find strength and resilience in that, even when all of the things that we have held on to for so long have been seemingly taken away.
Yeah, so I would certainly agree with everything that Zack just said. And I think that the part that I would add in terms of my own experience is that I've been seeing things in layers so much lately, which is to say that there is sort of one layer that started at the beginning of March when all of this fell upon us like an anvil out of the universe and just dropped on all of us. But a lot of the problems that are now coming out were around a long time before that anvil dropped. And that what is necessary, there's sort of like two parts of it. First of all, everybody's going to feel stressed by this situation. You can't not feel stressed. So, but it's really a matter of degree. And like, am I like way unhinged by this? And if so, what do I need to do about that? That's one question. And how hard is it hitting me compared to other people? So, and then also, how much is old stuff feeding into what I am experiencing right now? So that, for example, even when Tristan mentioned, oh, well, you know, maybe I'll do a piece of work on my mom. Well, my hunch is you've known your mom for a while. And my hunch is that whatever work you were going to be doing with her, probably we could follow the cookie crumbs back a little bit and see to what extent they had any kind of bearing on what we have going on now. And so there are all these different sort of way stations along the road in terms of exploring what we have going on here.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. And I wonder, as we talk about these things, managing anxiety, managing depression, and things that may either, may be coming from a deeper place, may have more of a core, but we have a little bit more time to focus on them and we're seeing them come out a bit more. What are some of the tools, and I'll open this to anybody who would like to respond, but what are some of the tools that you think are essential to have in your toolkit when dealing with those things, when dealing with anxiety? What do you typically do? Tristan?
I just wanted to real quick use this as an opportunity to say that there doesn't need to be a problem for you to go to see a therapist, and I think that really having somebody to talk to like that in general is such a useful thing, especially right now, but just in your daily life. I think about it like a dentist, essentially, like just having somebody to check in with, and if there's a bigger problem, then going more often. But I used MusiCares. MusiCares helped me pay for some pretty substantial therapy that fully changed my life, like how I'm able to live my life. And before that, I was avoiding all of the things that were hurting me and causing problems in my life by playing music. I was using music as an escape in, a kind of nice, romantic, artistic way, but also literally just being on the road all of the time. So I never had to actually think about how I felt. And when I decided to stop doing that, I had to start going to a therapist because I couldn't. And now nobody can run from their problems right now. We all have to sit in our house, and there's only so much Netflix that you can watch. So
yeah, it can be really easy to just go along with the way that things are and get busy in life. And we've all been forced, silver lining here, we've been forced to slow down. And so it's a great opportunity to really look inward and to examine some different things and try to figure out a path, a new rhythm. So what else, what other tools do you guys feel are important to have in your toolkit to manage depression, to manage anxiety, to manage that uncertainty? What do you do for self-care, Annie? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
How's it good? All right. Technology. Okay. when I went to that Victor Wooten camp, they had a lot of people talking about things like this, international experts and all that. So what I did was develop a mantra that I stand up, I say every morning outside with my shoes off, so I get energy from the earth or whatever. They talked about that. You know, I am strong, I am healthy, I am loved, I'm kind, I'm wise, I move into the light, and I add things like get rid of negativity, you know, get behind me. And I'm cute and I'm secure. That's a big thing with me, to not be insecure, because I've always been insecure. So, oh, you don't like me? You didn't answer my email and all that. So I've tried to, I say that every single day. My animals sit with me outside and I say, okay, it's time for our mantra. That's a big thing that I have done, that it seems really simple. Oh, the other thing is wake up and smile right away, because it releases dopamine. I learned that from somebody. So I've tried to take those simple techniques, and second, I can transfer them to children. That's easy to understand. So that's it. That's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Annie. And you are adorable. These are the
Is it working?
Yes, it is working. There are resounding adorableness about Annie going on the Facebook comments. So
I had to read the whole thing, you know.
Lovely. David, Zach, do you have anything to add to that? Tools for the toolkit, if there's certain things that you typically have your clients do?
I would say that there's a few things that I would emphasize. First is that there's not any one size fits all, and that everybody needs to kind of find what works for them. And so it's always kind of a journey, right? And what works for one person may or may not work for the next person. So that's part one. The second thing that I would say that's really important is to manage expectations, which is to say that you can't expect that you're going to see one tweet or one bumper sticker, or you're going to do any one thing and that it's going to make things better day after day after day. It doesn't work like that. It takes longer, and it's sort of an evolving journey of change. And then the third thing that I would throw in here is that I am not ever looking for answers. Because if I start off looking for answers, I never find answers. What I find is that I need to start by formulating the right question. And the more I can figure out, what is it that's bugging me? Why is this behaving the way it is? What triggered it? And so if I'm having trouble, it usually means that I have not figured out what the right question is to ask yet. And so I'm far more interested in questions than I am answers.
I love that. Everything he said, I double down on that. I should, and sort of playing on that a little bit. We sort of all know the things that will, from a self-care perspective, that should make us feel good, right? Do more yoga, eat healthy, get out there and get to this. And what happens when it doesn't, right? So, or it's harder to access those points. I think that sort of piggybacking on the question that we're facing and the questions we're having about everything, like David was talking about, is really an acknowledgement of what our experience is on a daily basis. Sometimes we feel great and sometimes we don't. And so as we can start to understand what's happening internally with us, we can then strategize and come up with solutions that can help those individual and unique questions that are happening within all of us. Because I think one thing that is difficult now for myself and I think for a lot of people is this idea that we're all in it together and that we're this collective. And, you know, I hear a lot, and I would almost argue that, yes, we are all in it together, but we're all suffering our own experience through this. So yes, in the collective sense, we are globally going through something together, but also understanding that, like David said, our experience is unique. What works for one doesn't work for another. And really again, the acknowledgement of the experience that we are having, whether that be good, bad, positive, negative, sort of understanding what is, attempting to understand or trying to start the process of understanding, why is this so uncomfortable for me? Why does this feel okay? Why do I feel better when I do this? And sort of beginning that exploration. And it's a creative process too, of like how we can best curate our lives to feel good in the moment.
Tristan, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt anybody. It was really important for me to learn at just some point that it was okay to feel bad. And maybe just, I think a lot of people maybe don't think about that. And I think at least the way that I was kind of raised, like as a man, like there was not a lot of emphasis put on expressing feelings, and also a lot of pretty negative feelings around expressing negative feeling, really any sort of anything other than just determination, positive feelings. So, but it's okay. Like that was one of the early things helping my partner out, was just like, this is not a fun thing. This is a bad thing. This is a sad thing that's happening. And it's okay for it to be sad. You don't have to, it's not a failure to feel sad about it. It's however you feel is however you feel. That has nothing to do with your success. And if success isn't even a good, it's really easy, especially for me as like somebody who has created a career on this weird idea of my own personal image and how people perceive me. Success has been defined a lot by like how I'm presenting myself. And so it's been a challenge for me, and I would imagine other musicians, to be able to accept that I'm just sad and there's nothing to do about it.
Yeah, and I thank you for that, Tristan. I think that is so important. And that's one way that we look at helping others, is to be honest about our experiences and to be open with the fact that, you know, that this is a very difficult time. And I think that helps others to feel like they're not alone in this. I know that, you know, like David said, we all experience things differently. We are all going through a pandemic, which is a very new experience for all of us, but we do have a different way of experiencing that. And when you're able to be open and use the platform that you have to talk about mental health openly, to talk about how you're going through things, it helps others to really see that connection and that they're not alone. What are other ways that we can help others to take care of themselves during this time? Even if we can't be face to face with them, are there suggestions that you guys have for us to be able to help others going through a really difficult time right now?
So Danielle, are you thinking about like other bandmates or other family members or friends or all of the above? What are you thinking?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Other people that you're coming into contact with as an individual, what can people do to help take care of their friends, family members, bandmates, help to give them support during this time? Go ahead, Annie.
Oh gosh, I think I'm okay. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is to communicate with, don't just hole up and not do anything. Like I go to the live things, I see Tristan on there, send him a little money, say something good, you know, and other people, and I communicate, try to all the time with my band children, you know, just to let them, I'm out here, you know. Once in a while they call me to see if I'm still alive and everything, and that's really nice. But I try to really communicate, and every day make a call to somebody maybe I don't normally talk to. And I get the same thing from people, but I think communication is of utmost with people right now, whether it's to commiserate with them or to encourage them or to say, I'm just thinking about you, I love you, you know, that's what I do.
Yeah, I've been sending a lot of thinking about you texts. I've noticed that I've been able to follow my intuition a little bit with some of my friends who I don't necessarily have, like I'm not the closest with, but that are friends of mine. Have noticed some shifts in their, you know, seeing them online or posting stuff, and some of them are sad, but not really, you know, they maybe don't want to talk about it as much online, but they're still sad and they feel alone. So just reaching out and saying like, hey, I'm thinking about you. You're important to me. I care about you. I hope you're okay. Can be really helpful.
Yeah, that community is so important, I think, to our mental health, to have others around us and to be able to feel a sense of community. And that can be really tough when you're quarantined, when you're stuck in your home and not able to actually see people. But there are definitely ways to continue to have that community now, like what we're doing right now. And I know both Annie and Tristan, you guys had both mentioned how you've been able to continue your craft with some online music presence. Oh, and that's my cat.
Well, you have now done 2 cat scans in this session.
She wants to be a part of this.
Charge extra for cat scans?
So tell us, how have you been able to continue your craft during this time? And can you give us some suggestions that might help others to have ideas of what they'd be able to do?
Like I mentioned earlier, I'd kind of been transitioning to not touring full time before all of this. So I had already kind of been building sort of an online, like having more of my artistic expression exist online more. And that mostly came in the form of just me posting pretty much everything I did. Like every time I learned a tune, you know, I post a video of that. And every time I, you know, make a video with somebody, or like, you know, it became more of a connecting with the community online rather than seeing people in person at shows. And then I figured out ways to sort of monetize that for my, you know, so I could support myself. I have a Patreon page, and I have I do some online lessons, like, and it's crafted specifically to what is comfortable for me. That did take me, you know, that took a while for me to figure out the balance of, I get really anxious planning private lessons. I really struggle with that, even though it's something that a lot of people that are close to me it makes them feel very secure to have that. And so it took a while of trial and error for me to figure out what worked for me to feel comfortable and fulfilled posting stuff online. But then also just listening, kind of just paying attention to what people responded to, so that I wasn't just, I don't know, you know, I still make music for other people. And so I want to make things that people enjoy. So I just sort of shifted my thinking from performing on stage and reading an audience and talking to an audience to making videos and seeing how they perform differently, what's different, how people respond to them, and informing my decisions based on that.
Annie, did you want to add to that?
Just a little something, because I never wanted to learn anything new. I didn't want to do technology. The children would have to handle everything. And when this happened, I had to. And so I took a Zoom session with Kathy Fink on practicing better or something. And I saw, oh, this is kind of fun. So I got in, I learned to do the basics. And then getting children, though, who are used to coming to the house twice a week, eating, socializing, playing music and all that, it's been very difficult to get them to buy into the Zoom thing. but I keep persevering, and I get 10 or 12 each week. And we practice songs. We do those little fake kind of jamming things. And that's what I have done to take the place of what we're doing. It's no match for it, but we can at least we can look at each other. We learn some new songs, and that's what I have done. That's the basis of what I do. I sweat over it and worry about it and try to figure out. We're just like Tristan was talking about how to make it all work. And I got a brand new computer because my other one kept crashing. My daughter got me a computer, so I'm set now. Anyway, that's the gist of what I have.
So the thing that I would point to about what you just said is you said, the kids were uncomfortable coming over. And I think that's a huge important part of this, which is to say that although we are all kind of like consumed by how hard this is for us, in fact, because we're so consumed by how hard it is, you can sort of forget the fact that it's hard for other people also.
Yeah.
And so you can sort of like forget that, well, if they're not coming over, it's not because I did it wrong or I said something wrong. They also are wrestling. So, I mean, we have not only a pandemic of a virus, but we have a pandemic of people trying to figure out which end is up.
Yes.
And we have a pandemic of people trying to figure out, where do I fit in my community? Where do I fit in my family? Where do I fit in my neighborhood? And so it's all around us. And the virus is only one layer of this massive social cultural shift that we are all experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm quite sure it's going to continue for a long time. Not only is it going to be a long time to get a vaccine, but I'm betting any money that there are going to be long-term tails to this physical virus that we're all going to be learning about for a long time.
Yeah.
So
one thing I have noticed, not to get dark, is just that, especially in the beginning, watching all of my friends scramble, trying to figure out what to do. Throughout this entire process, I have watched almost every single person that I know plan for the best case scenario.
Yep.
And that's just not, as somebody who grew up in a situation where that just wasn't an option, essentially, like that's never been how I've thought. So it was I was a little taken aback at first to watch people reschedule shows for July or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And and people now are rescheduling shows for September, and like once this started, a week into it, it was just like, okay, I'm not doing anything this year. I was mostly teaching at music camps this year, and like 10 music camps I was teaching, and I just immediately assumed I'm not going to do any of these. If I do, then that's great. But like I've known just from experience of that sort of thing, like it's better for me to make this plan of not doing anything for a year, and if something changes, it's good, rather than me expecting things to go back to normal in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and having to keep changing my plan.
We've got a question on Facebook, and Zack, this might be one that you want to tackle. If someone's struggling with anxiety or depression, how do you encourage them, lift them up while still acknowledging that it's okay to not be okay?
It sort of answers itself, I think, a little bit, right? Which is to say that it's okay to not be okay, and to almost sit with that and acknowledge that and be in that. And also, this isn't super clinical, but trust the fact that it will hopefully change, right? So what we're experiencing now always changes. We are impermanent beings at all times, right? And I guess for this individual, I would ask them, in prior times of anxiety and or depression, how were you able to move through that? How were you able to get out of that? And if they were, then that suggests to me that they can definitely do it again. But yeah, I mean, this is not this is not an easy time, and anxiety is going to happen, depression is going to happen, financial fear is going to happen, insecurity, identity issues, all wrapped into one. And I think the struggle for so many, and myself too, is the swinging of emotion that can happen so quickly, and being able to like sort of find some sort of center when, like Tristan, you said, something hits us and then we're like, okay, well, I'm just going to rebook for a month from now. And then a month comes and it's like, holy shit, well, that's not going to happen. And so there's some disappointment and some anxiety. And then we sort of project out. And so this swing and this vacillation of emotion is real. And I believe that in that is inevitable that anxiety and or depression are going to come up, because this is a time full of anxiety and depression. And sort of acknowledging that that exists, and acknowledging that the counterpoint exists also. And so with that comes the other. And how do we strategize for our own personal life ways to get out of that? But yeah, that's what I would suggest or say.
Well, and I think something that's so difficult within this situation is the lack of control that we have. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with anyway. And so there's a circumstance, there's a pandemic, and we can't change the fact that this has happened. We can't, we don't have a lot of control over that. But going back to what we do have control over really is our thoughts around that. And that snowballs into our emotions and our behaviors. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that being able to have that, like that emotional release, being able to communicate with others and walk beside others in this time is really important. I've got another question, and I know, Annie, you touched on this a little bit already with the self-talk that you use and your mantra, but how do you keep motivated to continue your career when there's so much uncertainty to the future of festivals, touring, etc.?
Are you asking me?
Yes, if you'd like to answer that, go for it.
Because we lost all our festival work and everything. And we even had to turn one down that was going on ahead in Tucson, and we had to back out, and we were on 2 days. And I felt so terrible. But that was the beginning. That was like March 13th. And then when another one went down and another one, I did the same thing as Tristan. Look, we have no idea when this will ever be over. I know I will be here. I will still have all of you. I'll have a band. You know, that's it. We don't know. But we are going to communicate. We're going to learn songs. We're going to do what we can do. Watch out for each other, you know, and I don't know what else you can do, but that's what I do. I do the same thing. There's no timeline on this. It may be 2 years. We don't know. Hopefully everybody's not married and gone by the time it's over. Hasn't happened yet, Tristan. But that's what I think your mindset, your thinking in this is honestly just about everything. What you choose to think. That's my assessment. Okay.
I think for me, I think it's really great. In Annie's case, I'm very familiar with Annie's band and their work, and that situation is a really beautiful community that they have and have built, and that's such a beautiful thing. And that's sort of a thing where it's like here, well, I mean anywhere that I've lived, there's always been I'm a bluegrass musician, so speaking about bluegrass, there's always been a bluegrass community, and that community will always be there. And whether or not your exact job is going to exist or be the same is hard to say right now, but speaking as like somebody who was just a touring musician, like my life was uncertain. I think that was one of the things coming into this that was sort of easy and hard to rationalize was that forever, well, I mean, for like my entire adult life, I've been planning in this kind of weird tiered way where like I'm booking things a year in advance and then putting them on the back burner until about 6 months out when I have to start promoting them, but I'm really only thinking about 3 months in advance because that's when I'm planning the travel, and then I'm really only thinking about that week. Where am I this week? Where am I today? What am I doing? And all of this I had to just not, now I wasn't thinking about any of that, but now I could just sort of extrapolate that to like, okay, well, what am I going to do in a year? I have a lot more time to actually think about what I'm going to do and why I'm doing it. Because I think, and this is more of a subjective sort of thing, but I think especially in bluegrass, people get in this pattern of doing things because they think that that's the way they're supposed to do them. You're supposed to tour, you're supposed to make a CD so you can sell it at festivals, you're supposed to book shows, and it's really easy to never actually think about, why am I doing this? What do I want to accomplish? You know, what are my actual goals? And I think that though if you think about that a little bit more, it's easier if you're staking your goals on yourself and what you want, rather than like this intangible sort of moving target of what you think you're supposed to do, then it's a lot easier to find a groundedness and motivation to keep going.
Tristan, I think that's such an important point. And I guess the question that I would offer is, what's the difference between asking yourself, what am I going to do if and when this does or doesn't happen, compared to who am I in this situation when all of this is going on, right? This is sort of exactly what you were talking about, Tristan, which is like when it's gone, when the festivals are no longer, and our ability to get on stage is no longer, and the audience is no longer, and all of these things that make up our lives are sort of taken away from us. Who are we? What do we do? And this is obviously like a very big layered question. I'm not sort of this is a much more challenging answer than just saying like, go do some yoga or go cook some spinach and feel okay, right? So I think that all those sort of like wellness practices to sort of keep our mind going is great. And also the understanding that some people have super default positive frameworks and some people don't, right? Like some people are just sort of born with maybe a little more negative outlook on things based on their experience and or their genetics, right? So, but I pose the question of, when it's gone, when there are no longer any festivals, and when all those things are taken away from us, who are we in the moment? How do we show up in those moments and continue, right? So whoever asked that question is still here, right? They're still on this Zoom call. They're still asking questions. They're still exploring whatever that is for them. My recommendation is keep exploring that. And you might be very surprised at the answers that you can come up with for yourself. Again, much deeper, much bigger, but I think Tristan, just plays off of what you're saying is so important to not like the validation and the outside and the booking and the this and the that, and how we situate ourselves within that instead of just situating ourselves within our own being of what's happening.
Awesome. We're getting down to our last 10 minutes, and I want to make sure that we've got a little bit of time to go into another question that we've had. Can you address the topic of artists, festivals, promoters choosing to go ahead with events where social distancing is problematic or impossible during this time, and how we as a community can have a civil discussion about these decisions? And also kind of piggybacking on that, how to go about that, making the decision, the hard decision maybe to not perform, even though there's a lack of work right now.
Yeah, I don't have
Any
a
other
suggestion.
easy questions, Danielle?
What's that? Let
Easy
me.
questions?
There's a lot to unpack in everything that we've been talking about, and that one especially. I'm
So
giving you guys just a couple minutes.
let me take a pass at that. I'll try it because I think that I've been looking a lot at this, and we are in the midst of such a dissolution, a deterioration of our community conversation, of our public dialogue. And I find it to be enormously sad that we have just gotten to a point where people are not hearing each other and people are digging into one position or another. And I don't have any great answers, but I do think that the more we can look at this as a broad subject and not make it personal, first of all, and not make it sort of mushroom cloud, second of all, and step back, take a deep breath, and find a way to reframe any given conversation. I'm very much afraid that people are responding to things for any number of reasons. For example, they go one way or the other just because their friends are going that way, or just because some people they admire are going that way, or whatever, or they go the opposite direction of somebody else they think they don't like. And so I think that there's sort of a lot of knee-jerk reactivity, which is causing huge problems with how we talk to each other. And so, at least from my point of view, I try to step back, take a deep breath and say, okay, what are my values? What am I actually thinking? Can I kind of like separate myself from the person's anxiety on the other side of this conversation, recognizing that they have anxiety about something and respecting them and caring for them, even if they're attacking me. So these are some of the things that I start to bring into that territory that you're talking about there.
I would just go ahead and venture to say, I think we're in this really strange time of constant analysis of what risk reward is for our own lives.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of, you know, what promoters are doing or what tours are doing or artists are doing, I mean, I think it's an internal calculus of what they deem valuable. Sometimes it's, let's get out there and let's try to make money because we need to, which makes perfect sense to me. Sometimes it's, we don't need to do this. So I think that as we move forward in this disorienting time where there's a lot of confusion and there's no cohesive conversation, there's no cohesive answer or guidance, that we're all having to make our own internal risk reward analysis of what something will bring to us. I have to decide whether to send my 2-year-old to daycare next week or 2 weeks from now. And this is different than touring, but this is something that my family has to decide. Like, is this right for us? Is it not right for us? And I think what happens for me is different than what happens for, I'm sure, everybody else who would be on this call. And so when we're thinking about getting out there and playing, or maybe social distance concerts or whatever it is, like, have that hard conversation. What is this about? What is going on with you? And what's the risk? What's the reward? Where, like David said, where are your values in there? And then you got to make the best decision for you. And chances are you're probably not going to make everybody happy, right? But if we've done that work within ourselves and we feel good about it, and it comes from an honest and genuine place, I think we can live with that.
I think it can be really hard just from my perspective too, it can just be hard to deal with. I've never actually had to try to put it into words, but this almost sort of keeping up with the Joneses of, like, you just have to keep working. You have to keep, I mean, I played in a band where, like, the ethos was essentially just keep working. Like, we always kept going because that was the only way that we could prove to ourselves that we were doing it, I guess. And so it was really hard for me to break free of that sort of idea that I have to be doing as much as everybody else. And I think some people can sometimes struggle with that, but I don't know if I have any advice on how to get over that exactly.
Well, guys, oh, go ahead, Annie.
I was just going to say, while we're talking about going out and performing, why aren't we really perfecting the online thing of the concerts? I have adored watching individual performers like you, Tristan. I'm pointing at you. But I have enjoyed that. I went to the Porch Pride, that's what it was called, put on with 24 different performers, Justin Hilton and all those guys. I adored watching each of these people doing their half-hour concert. A lot of money was raised for them. I think in the end, like $650 each for all of these people. And I think people, you have to kind of break out of, we have to go out on a big stage, because I want to give money to people that are entertaining me. And I probably wouldn't spend $10 if I had to go real far to do that. But I think that in this time, why not explore that, perfect what we're doing?
Yeah.
You know, somebody invent how to jam with each other easily.
Yeah, I do think I would agree with Annie. It's sort of piggybacking on what I said earlier about the best case, worst case scenario outlook. Like, if a lot of people that are doing the live stream concerts, it has, especially early on, it was very obvious. It was just like, okay, we need money, so we're going to essentially just busk online. But I mean, we're multiple months into this with no particular end in sight. It might be time as artists to just start thinking about, like, how can I bring the same sort of intentionality that I bring to my live performances to doing a live stream show, not just doing a live stream show out of necessity, but actually putting on a show this way.
Right.
Just a final point. I would venture to say that everybody who's on this call and watching this call has got some creativity in them, and right, can be a time to really, like you said, Tristan, figure out ways to get creative, to think outside the box and figure out strategies that can work for you also. So I would, without putting too much pressure on yourself, just, think about like how resilient we are in being here. So that's amazing. And how useful and creative we could be to figure out strategies to both maintain and potentially move forward in the future, right? Like moving from in person to online, like you did, Tristan. Like that takes a lot of innovation and a lot of thinking and a lot of strength to be able to acknowledge and do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for being here and participating, and thank you again to the International Bluegrass Music Association for making this possible. Any
one last cat scan.
She knows. Any thoughts on resources that are available? Just quickly, Zack, I know you have a group that you're running that's free. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so outside of it, anybody's struggling out there and needs to sort of locate some mental health resources, you can go to backline.care and click on the Give Help tab, which will give you a submission form. You can submit to us and we can get on the phone with you and try to help find you some help wherever you are and whatever you're doing. So that's one thing. The other thing, and I'm not sure, can we post this somewhere maybe? I don't have the exact link in front of me, but I have been facilitating with a very close friend and amazing colleague of mine who's a clinical psychologist. We've been facilitating an online support group for musicians 2 times a week. So we're on our 17th week now. What started at 340 people the first little while has sort of turned, it was, global, just amazing. But as the weeks have gone on, obviously it's turned into like a group of 15, 20 people who are with us 2 times a week. But the group is absolutely open. It's all music industry professionals. They are tour managers and crew and artists and singers and the whole gamut. And this is what we do. We talk about all of these issues in depth, whether they are the struggles of making money to the relationship issues happening, in our world right now. And it's really, again, a place to come be supported and to have a space to be together to be during this time. So I don't know where I can send out the Zoom link somewhere, maybe Danielle, or do it separately, or I don't know how you want to do that, but we can probably, I'm sure we can figure out a way to post that so people can have access to that if that's something that they want.
We can add that to the Facebook link, to the comments. And I'll also add, MusiCares has a FAQ page that lists different resources. Of course, we're a resource for financial assistance. And we're also running a similar support group that's available that people can reach out to us, reach out to me specifically. I'm one of the moderators of that. But we'll make sure to put all of that information in the links. And I appreciate all of you. I've enjoyed getting to spend this time with you. And thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you.
Thanks.